Whitney Houston.
The final moments of Whitney Houston.
Defense of Whitney Houston.
We're learning more tonight about the dark and final days of legendary superstar Whitney Houston.
And found the superstar face up in the water-filled tub. She and the bodyguard pulled Whitney out, called 911, and frantically tried to revive her.
January 27th, 1991. Tampa, Florida, Super Bowl 25. A woman walks to the microphone in front of 73,000 people. The stadium goes quiet, and then she opens her mouth. What follows is widely considered the greatest performance of the national anthem in the history of American music. Not the best that night, not the best that year, the best ever. Her name is Whitney Houston. 21 years later, February 11th, 2012, Beverly Hills, California. The Beverly Hilton Hotel. Whitney Houston is found unresponsive in her bathtub. She is 48 years old. The greatest voice the world has ever heard gone, quietly, in a hotel room, alone. How does that happen? How does the most gifted singer alive end up there? That's what we're going to find out. Newark, New Jersey, August 9th, 1963. Whitney Elizabeth Houston is born into a household built on music. Her mother, Sissy, is a Grammy-winning gospel singer. Her cousin is Dionne Warwick. Aretha Franklin is her honorary aunt. Her godmother is Darlene Love. She didn't have to go looking for greatness. Greatness was already in the room. She joins the church choir at 5 years old, makes her solo debut at 12, performing a hymn at New Hope Baptist Church in Newark. The congregation stops breathing. By 14, she is singing backup for her mother at clubs in Manhattan. By 19, Clive Davis of Arista Records watches her perform at a nightclub and signs her on the spot. Her debut album drops in 1985. It spends 14 weeks at #1. It becomes the best-selling debut album by a solo artist in the history of recorded music. That record still stands today. Then the second album, Whitney, in 1987. She becomes the first woman in history to debut at #1 on the Billboard 200. 7 consecutive #1 singles, a record that has never been broken. Not by anyone. Rolling Stone called her one of the most exciting new voices in years. The New York Times declared her the new Queen of Pop. She was 23 years old, and she was just getting started. 1991, Super Bowl 25, The Star-Spangled Banner. The performance is so extraordinary that it is released as a commercial single and reaches the top 20 on the Billboard Hot 100, a national anthem, charting because of how she sang it. Then, The Bodyguard, 1992, I Will Always Love You, originally written by Dolly Parton, transformed by Whitney Houston into something nobody had ever heard before. 14 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the longest run in history at the time. The best-selling single ever by a female artist, 24 million copies worldwide. Diamond certified. The Bodyguard soundtrack, 45 million copies sold. The best-selling soundtrack album in the history of music. Still. 220 million total records sold across her career. More Grammys, American Music Awards, and Billboard Awards than almost any artist alive. Ranked second greatest singer of all time by Rolling Stone in 2023, behind only Aretha Franklin. The Voice. That's what they called her. Because there was no other word for it. And then everything that came next, his name was Bobby Brown. They married in July 1992, the same year The Bodyguard came out. The same year she was at the absolute top of the world. The marriage was turbulent from the start. Public arguments, tabloid headlines, a relationship that seemed to bring out the worst in both of them. Bobby Brown later admitted to drug use throughout the marriage. Whitney's own drug use, which had reportedly started before they met, accelerated.
The drugs wasn't her. She did drugs, but drugs didn't do her. She knew how to handle herself. It only made me, love and want to protect her more.
People said to me, the one thing that they heard over and over again, that you were the one that led Whitney to heavy drug use.
Well,
that you were the one.
It wasn't me.
She tried to hide it for years, and for a while the music was strong enough to cover the cracks. But by 2002, it couldn't be hidden anymore. A Barbara Walters interview that year showed a Whitney Houston the world barely recognized, gaunt, struggling, visibly not well. In 2005, the reality show Being Bobby Brown aired. It was supposed to be about Bobby. But what the world saw was Whitney, one of the greatest artists who ever lived, diminished, reduced, unrecognizable from the woman who had stood at that Super Bowl microphone 14 years earlier. The tabloids fed on every moment, the industry watched, the records kept selling. She divorced Bobby Brown in 2007, but the addiction didn't leave with him. Some damage runs too deep to be fixed by a divorce. She tried to come back. I Look to You. 2009, her first studio album in 7 years. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. The world wanted her back. They were ready to receive her. But the voice, that extraordinary once-in-a-generation voice, was not fully there anymore. Years of drug use had taken something that couldn't be given back. The world tour that followed was difficult. Canceled shows, performances that broke fans' hearts, not because she was bad, but because they could hear the distance between what she had been and what remained. She was trying. Everyone around her could see she was trying. February 9th, 2012, the Grammy Awards weekend, Los Angeles. Whitney Houston is at a pre-Grammy party at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, the same hotel where the Grammy ceremony would be held the following evening. She is scheduled to perform. She never makes it to the stage. February 11th, 2012, her assistant finds her in the bathtub of her hotel room. Accidental drowning, heart disease, cocaine use as contributing factors. The Grammy Awards go ahead that evening, with a chair left empty on stage. She was 48 years old, 220 million records, the best-selling debut album in history, the best-selling soundtrack album in history, the best-selling single ever by a female artist, the only artist to have 7 consecutive #1 singles, the greatest national anthem performance ever recorded, and an empty chair at the Grammys. Whitney Houston's story follows the same unbearable pattern we keep seeing. Extraordinary talent, extraordinary pain, an industry that was far better at selling the gift than protecting the person who carried it. There were people around her, there was money, there was fame, there was a world full of people who loved her, and still, she ended up alone in that bathtub. Her daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, was found unresponsive in her own bathtub 3 years later in 2015. She died 6 months after that. She was 22 years old, a mother and a daughter. The same story, 3 years apart. Whitney Houston gave everything she had to the world. Every note, every performance, every piece of herself. The question this story leaves you with, as it always does, is whether the world gave anything real back. The voice. Gone too soon, and the silence she left behind is louder than anything,